100 class. This is Miss Meij Bagangao, and I will be presenting to you another part of the third chapter of your Bio 100, which is focused on zoology. We now go into the reproductive system. And the primary function of your reproductive system is for reproduction, which is the creation or production of offsprings carrying the genetic information in the form of DNA from their parents. So for this chapter or for this lesson, we will be going into the types of reproduction, like your asexual reproduction and your sexual reproduction. And then later on, we will go into a review of the human reproductive system, specifically the male and female reproductive system, which you might have already encountered in your early biology days as early as elementary. And then for the last part, we will be going into the reproductive cycles, which is also another review of what you have encountered in your high school biology. So hopefully, other than being a refresher course, the knowledge that you have of the reproductive system, especially in the animal kingdom, would have added information or added knowledge as you go through the following lecture. So now let us go to the types of reproduction. So for the asexual reproduction, you have in the production of an offspring without the participation of the sperm and egg that would usually combine through the process of fertilization, forming the zygote or the offspring. So that would usually happen in what we call as asexual reproduction. So in sexual reproduction, there is the presence or there is the participation of the sperm and the egg that would usually fuse through fertilization. So the sperm and the egg cells, these are also what we call as your gonads. So these sex cells or gonads are the ones that are going through fertilization. Now let us go back to asexual reproduction. So here you are presented with an example of an asexual reproduction, which is budding in one group of organisms such as cnidarians, specifically your hydra. So in asexual reproduction, such as budding in hydra, the parent material will just produce a complete duplicate of itself, or it buds, or another one offspring would bud from the parent material, such that it is able to detach after it becomes mature and grow into an individual adult. So this budding would also occur in some microorganisms, such as your fungi and your bacteria. Let us try to see other forms of asexual reproduction. Another one is you have what we call as your parthenogenesis. In parthenogenesis, let us first try to focus in such examples such as your haploid parthenogenesis and in apomixis, which is a type of diploid parthenogenesis. In haploid parthenogenesis, after a germ cell, a primordial germ cell undergoes meiosis, producing an oocyte. So this oocyte would then not be fertilized. It will still remain as a haploid oocyte, but the haploid oocyte is able to develop into a haploid zygote, further developing into a haploid individual. So this haploid parthenogenesis occurs in organisms such as insects like your bees. So the queen bee, which is a diploid, so a primordial germ cell of your queen bee is able to undergo meiosis. After undergoing meiosis, it will produce a haploid sex cell or a haploid oocyte. This haploid oocyte again develops into a haploid adult, resulting to what we call as drones. So the drones that are present in the colonies of bees are actually haploid individuals and are results of parthenogenesis. Another type of parthenogenesis, which is classified as a diploid parthenogenesis, is your apomixis. So then again, we start with a primordial germ cell, which would undergo mitosis, producing the female egg cell. And because it is kept meiosis, there is no production of oocyte. Okay, the female egg cell is still diploid in form. Remember, your sex cells are always haploid after undergoing meiosis. But in this case, the primordial germline did not undergo meiosis. So instead of producing an oocyte, which is a haploid, it now produces a female egg cell, which is a diploid. This female egg cell, which is a diploid, develops into a diploid egg and into a diploid individual. This may be some of the cases in individuals, such as in your Apidocellus lizard. Let me just find my pen so we can show you Apidocellus. So there are groups of lizards, such as your Apidocellus genus, that would actually undergo apomixis, resulting to offsprings that have very similar genetic, or that have the same similar genetic material as their parents. So some members of the group of some species that belong to this genus of lizard are able to undergo Parthenogenesis. So those are types of asexual reproduction. Now we go to sexual reproduction, as we mentioned again earlier. It is the production of an offspring involving sex cells, or gonads, such as your sperm cells and your egg cells. We will further look into the details of this sexual reproduction in the following slides, first by going through the human reproductive system. So let us focus in to this one. Okay, there are as well different types of sexual reproduction that are occurring in different groups of organisms. But for the sake of our lecture, let us focus on higher order organisms, such as humans, by looking into their reproductive system. So the first one is the male reproductive system. We have already encountered this as early as your elementary days, so let us just have a review of them. So first, the anatomy of the male reproductive system. You are very well familiar um, with the body part we call as your penis. Okay, so your penis, it has a dual purpose, or it has a dual function. First, for the secretion of urine, and another one is for sexual intercourse, or the ejection of your semen. Unlike in females, the passage of urine um, and the one that and the opening that is involved during sexual intercourse is different from that of the male. So in males, so you have in here the urethra, this one, which is involved in the ejection of your semen and in the ejection of your urine. So that is all. You may find that all in the body part, which is your penis. Okay, and you also have in here your glans penis, or the head of your penis, which is considered to be highly sensitive tissues for sexual stimulation. Of the nerves that are present in your glans penis contributes a lot to the success of reproduction, primarily in the ejaculation of your male. So for other parts of your male reproductive system, you have in here your scrotum, which hangs outside the abdominal cavity but becomes heavily wrinkled when it is cold. So your scrotum is the one that would cover your testes, okay, which are parts of organs that produces the sperm cells. We have in here your testes, which we will be looking on further later on, with the seminal globules that are present inside. So first, just consider that you have in here your testes. In this testes, you also have what we call as your sertoli, are actually the ones that are responsible for nurturing the developing sperm cells. Once the sperm cells are developed and are actually mature, they are now stored in what you call, or in a part which is your epididymis. So in your epididymis, dito naghihintay yung sperm cells ninyo before ejaculation. So in the process, or it may be stored in the epididymis and in the vas deferens. So this vas deferens connects the testes, and it will pass through the seminal vesicle up to your ejaculatory Nasa na yung ejaculatory? Before the urethra, you have your, here. Ayan, itong ejaculatory duct ninyo. So, hindi siya pinakita dun sa kabila. Okay. So, this vas deferens, again, connects your testis and to the ejaculatory duct, which is in here, before the sperm cells are ejected. Before the sperm cells are actually ejected, in the early phase of ejaculation, there are three parts in your male reproductive system that would actually secrete the first, or the fluid that are, the first part of ejaculation may not involve the sperm cells or may not contain sperm cells yet. Rather, it might include a cocktail of fluids that were actually produced by your seminal vesicles, by your prostate gland, and by your bulbourethral gland. So these 1, 2, 3 glands are involved in producing other fluids that would mix with your semen coming from the vas deferens, all reaching the urethra before it reaches through ejaculation. Okay, so all of the or the fluids that are produced by these three glands are responsible for additional lubrication. They are also responsible for providing nutrients or additional nutrients for the sperm cells as they become ejaculated and as the sperm cells would travel, or as the semen, okay, as a cocktail of all the fluids, including the sperm cells, travels from the penis up to the fallopian tube before meeting the egg cell. Again, let us try to summarize again the function of your accessory glands, or yung tatlong to. And these actually play an important part in the first phase of ejaculation. So again, you have in here your seminal vesicles. So the seminal vesicles would actually secrete semen. So this semen contains fructose and prostaglandins to the ejaculatory duct. So it would contain the fructose and prostaglandins. Another one, you have your prostate gland. So this prostate gland releases substances that buffers the acidic urethral duct since the sperm motility improves at pH 6. Remember, your urethra is also the passage of your urine. Because of this urine, the pH of your urethra somehow differs. So, para ma-buffer yun, nag-release, para ma-buffer yung acidic na environment dito, nag-release yung inyong prostate glands ng substances to be able to buffer that and retain the pH to be at somehow medyo neutral na pH 6, because that optimizes the motility of your sperm cells. And then these prostate glands also, if you have heard among advertisements and among medical terms, yung prostate glands na to, this is the one that is actually prone to cancer among male individuals. Okay, so ito yung medyo sensitive na part ng male reproductive system. So usually as an individual male gets older, the prostate glands would actually constrict, or parang iniipit niya yung inyong urethra, resulting to the inability or somehow difficulties in urination among old male individuals. So that is because of your prostate gland. Now we go to the third gland, which is your bulbourethral gland. This one secretes a lubricating mucus, or a seminal plasmin, as we call it, to give further lubrication as your sperm cell swims across the urethra to the female organ system. So those are the three different accessory glands and their functions in the male reproductive system. During sexual intercourse, this penis is filled with a spongy layer of muscles, which are then being filled with blood. Okay, so later on we will go into the stimulation process, or in additional physiological process of that one. But in here you can actually see that this penis is filled with spongy muscles, which will then be filled with red blood cells. So as blood vessels open and red blood cells fill your penis, that would result actually to the erection of your penis. As that would happen Another process occurs wherein, remember again, your urethra has two purposes. It is for ejaculation and it is for the release of the urine. So, para hindi magsabay yung release of urine at yung ejaculation during sexual intercourse, as blood vessels are filling up your penis, there's also another process that is undergoing into your urethra, which actually constricts the one that is connected to your urinary bladder. Nasaan si urinary bladder natin? So this one, in this urinary bladder, there is a constriction that would occur in here so that magsasara yung part na to and yung ejaculatory duct lang yung open. Okay? Para yung semen lang yung pwedeng lumabas. So, ganun yung nangyayari sa inyong male reproductive system. So, a more entertaining part of this could actually be viewed in one of the anime produced, which is your Cells at Work, Season 2. So, sa Season 2 na yun, hanapin nyo na lang yung part kung saan nagkakaroon ng kung saan may part doon na ini-involve yung reproduction. So now, as we mentioned earlier, we focus on in our testis kung saan nangyayari yung spermatogenesis. So genesis again is a term that would refer to generation or creation, and when we say spermato, it would refer to the sperm. So this is a type of gametogenesis. So gametogenesis, genesis, creation of gametes. Specifically, for this one, we will be focusing on a gamete or a gonad, which is our sperm. So there are three major steps that we may mention just to further categorize yung spermatogenesis. First is mitotic proliferation, the second one is meiosis, and then the third one is spermatogenesis. Again, all of this would occur in your testes. Okay, dito sa testes natin, specifically inside the seminiferous tubules. So, yung mga bilog-bilog na nakikita nyo yan yung mga seminiferous tubules. And a close-up of the seminiferous tubules would actually look like this one. So now we go to the first step, which is mitotic proliferation. So in the seminiferous tubule, you have what we call as your primordial germ cell. So these germ cells, these are somatic cells. They are part of your body cells. And as somatic cells, they are 2N. They are diploid. Itong mga primordial germ cell na to, sila yung mag-undergo na ng meiosis para magkaroon tayo ng sperm cells. But before that, these germ cells first have to increase their number. Otherwise, mauubusan tayo ng sperm cells. So they would undergo what we call as your mitotic proliferation. So in mitotic proliferation, the primordial germ cells would undergo your mitotic division. So in mitotic division, the first spermatogonium na maproproduce niya, the spermatogonium again encapsulates yung primordial germ cell natin. So nandito si primordial germ cell, spermatogonium encloses it. Okay? So sa first mitotic division, yung isa sa mga maproproduce out of that mitosis would actually go to the edge of your seminiferous tubule to be another parent material for another mitosis. The other one, which is, remember, during mitosis, nagkakaroon ka ng two daughter cells. So, yung isa sa mga daughter cells na yon, babalik siya doon sa wall ng inyong seminiferous tubule para maging starting material ulit in the future. The other daughter cell, it would proceed forward into meiosis. So that other mother cell would actually proceed into meiosis, resulting to the primary spermatocyte. Okay? Hindi pa ito nag-undergo ng meiosis. Siya pa lang yung mag-proceed to meiosis. Therefore, we still consider it as a diploid. So this primary spermatocyte, okay, which is a diploid, will undergo now meiosis. So after the first meiotic division, we now have secondary spermatophytes, which are haploids. We are now pala in the second part of our spermatogenesis, which is the meiosis part. Okay, so now meron na tayong secondary spermatophyte, they will undergo meiosis 2. So in meiosis 2, we will now produce 4 spermatids, which are all haploids. So yung spermatids, yung 4 na spermatids na to, they will undergo our step 3, which is spermatogenesis. And spermatogenesis, the spermatids are being packaged as sperm cells, wherein nagkakaroon ka ng head, which is this one, the middle part, and then the tail part. So let us see the details of the packaging of your sperm cells. In the head part, we have what we call as your acrosome, which contains enzymes that penetrate the egg membrane surrounding the cell. Also in the head part, you also have your nucleus. And because the nucleus is in this head part, the genetic material of your sperm cell is also located in the head part. Also, you also have the proximal centriole that is present between the head part and between the neck, or between the head part and between the middle part. These centrioles play a very important part, remember, during cell division. Ito yung, ang function ng centriole, sila yung nagpo-pull or sila yung nagko-connect sa kinetochore, tapos ipupull nila yung bawat chromosomes, okay, para maghiwalay yung mga yon. So yung centrioles na to, this plays a very important part in the initiation of first mitosis in the zygote, kung may mabubuo man na zygote. So that comprises, or those are the essential or important parts that you have to note in the head part of your sperm cell. And the middle piece, which is this one, is very important kasi nandito yung mitochondria ninyo. The mitochondria produces bursts of energy in order for your sperm cell to propel. Remember, the sperm cell has to spend a lot of energy for it to reach the egg cell. And of course, the last part you have in here, your tail or your flagellum, primarily for motility. And this tail or flagellum, if you will recall from your Bio 110, is similar to the microtubule composition that is also present in the flagellum of your cilia and flagellated organisms, such as in your euglena. Okay? So yung propellers na meron sila, or yung flagella na meron sila, yung composition ng tubules nun, which is 9 plus 2 array, is very similar with the flagella that is present in your sperm cells. Okay, so that is your male reproductive organ, male reproductive system, as well as your production of your sperm cell or your spermatogenesis. For the next part, pupuntahan naman natin yung female reproductive system.